Welcome to the program. It's hour one on this Tuesday. Dan and the Danettes, Dan Patrick Show. Congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines, national champs. If I would have said at the start of the year, the national championship team is going to have its coach suspended for 6 games during the regular season. 2 different incidents, 2 separate incidents. And you'd go, wait, he's going to not coach for 6 games? They're still going to win the national championship? Yeah. And he'll be an object of desire for NFL teams as well. Yeah. That happened right in front of our very eyes. The Michigan Wolverines, they dominated Washington last night, or at least it felt like they did. Every time I thought Washington might have an answer, a counterpunch, they did not deliver. They didn't have those big plays. It was a matchup that we knew what was supposed to happen or could happen. Washington was going to have big plays, had to have big plays. They didn't. Michigan was just going to run the football, and they did. Washington knew it, couldn't do anything about it. Michigan rushes for 303 yards. That's the most in a national title game. Most rushing yards in a BCS bowl game since Georgia rushed for over 300 yards. That was 2017 when they beat Oklahoma. And in that game, I think it was Sony Michel and Nick Chubb as they both rushed for over 100 yards. Blake Corum rushed for 134 last night, and Donovan Edwards as well. So they got 4 touchdowns out of their running game. And it was no secret. Michigan's offensive line was that good. I think Michigan's defense was underrated. I thought they put a lot of pressure on Michael Penix Jr., and I didn't think Washington's offensive line, which is one of the better offensive lines in the country, was ready for that. There was always one guy, there was always one person, didn't know where he was coming from. He was putting pressure on Michael Penix Jr. But that being said, you know, if you look at the final score, I don't think that's a true indication of this game. You know, starting the fourth quarter, it felt like Washington was 1 or 2 plays away from maybe putting a little bit of pressure on J.J. McCarthy. And I said this yesterday, he's not going to throw the football. He might be the greatest quarterback in Michigan history, but they don't rely on him. They relied on him last year to throw the football, not this year. And I thought that over under 15 passes for J.J. McCarthy. He ended up with 18 passes, 140 yards. He had a couple of plays, important plays, but it was the running game and that defense putting pressure on Michael Penix Jr. And in case you're wondering, Jim Harbaugh, right away, meeting with the media after the game, had this to say about his innocence.
This was not a season where everything went the way you wanted it to. There was the off-the-field issues, which we all know about. Can you talk about the satisfaction having overcome those as well to get to this point? Does it make it even sweeter?
Can I? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it couldn't have gone better. It went exactly how we wanted it to go, to win every game. The off the field issues, we're innocent, and we stood strong and tall because we knew we were innocent, and I just like to point that out. And these guys are innocent, and yeah, overcome that. It wasn't that hard because we knew we were innocent. So. Yeah, that's really what I want to say. It went exactly how we wanted it to go.
Okay. So this season went as scripted then. Gets suspended a couple of times. Even your quarterback came out and said, look, we started stealing signs because Ohio State was doing that. Okay. We waited for Jim Harbaugh to stand up and say, hey, this is why we're innocent. And then when he realized that somebody was doing something, and somebody was getting information, then he was going to stand down and take his punishment here. But through it all, they were a great team. Both sides of the ball, they were a great team. I don't think they trailed at halftime this year in any game. I don't think they trailed more than a few minutes in their entire season. They were a great team this year. But if you look back 3 years ago, this was during COVID. Michigan was 2-4. And all of a sudden, Jim, if you want to stay, you're going to have to take a pay cut. And he did. And then we wondered, boy, this next season, what's going to happen? But it almost energized him. Like, okay, here's the chip on his shoulder, and give credit to Harbaugh because he finally got a team that was in the true image of himself and the other teams that he's had in his coaching career. And you saw that last night. You saw that the last couple of years. I mean, you go back, I'm shocked that they got upset by TCU last year, but they're back and they win the national title, and rightfully so. They were a great football team. Washington, we waited for something from Michael Penix Jr. It was just never there. But I give credit to Michigan because it just felt like Michigan was going to put pressure on him. He just didn't know where that pressure was coming from. What really stood out with the Jim Harbaugh, that response we just had with the reporter's question, he starts out his answer by saying, can I? Like he's asking for permission from somebody from Michigan, I'm guessing, hey, we don't want to ask any of those questions here. Well, those questions are going to persist. It's like the Astros, that story had more validity and had legs because they won. If they don't win, then the story may go away a lot quicker. Michigan winning, it won't go away. It'll still be there. And they're still under investigation. 3 years from now, we could be talking about this, and Jim Harbaugh could be, coaching in the NFC, wild card round. I mean, USC took years for that to play out. And Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, Jim might not even be there. Probably won't be there in 3 years by the time they get around to, hearing this. All right, 877-3DP show. Operator Tyler standing by. Email address, dp@danpatrick.com. Twitter handle at DP Show. So Michigan is a winner. First time they've won the national title since 1997. Andy Staples will join us. We'll get his thoughts on Jim Harbaugh's future because we wondered yesterday, at least I thought it didn't matter what the outcome was going to be, that I think Jim's going to the NFL. And I think the Raiders are going to make a push for Jim. I think Carolina and Washington may be fighting each other for Bill Belichick. The Chargers opening is out there, and here's another thing. We were talking about these coaching vacancies or, guys getting fired. You had a couple of guys, Ron Rivera, Arthur Smith getting fired yesterday. If you didn't get fired yesterday, are you safe today? At what point, Belichick, out of respect, they were not going to fire him yesterday. At the end of the week, maybe we'll have some kind of PR statement there that we've decided to part ways and say nice things, verbal bouquets on both sides. But Mike Vrabel, safe. Matt Eberflus in Chicago, safe. If you made it through Monday, and then you go to work and you just, hey, we're getting ready for the draft and we're getting ready for free agency, we're getting ready for all these things, and all of a sudden you're just waiting. You're waiting for Shirley, who is the receptionist for the owner, to go, oh, yes, Shirley? Yes, ownership would like to see you. Yes, Paulie.
Are you looking for little tells? Like if you're Matt Eberflus, you pull up, you're like, it usually says reserved for Matt Eberflus, but it says reserved for head coach of Chicago Bears. Yeah. Or you swipe your card, you're like, bloop. Yep. Oh, bloop is good.
Yep, still goes through.
It brings in a box of donuts today. Like, hey, everybody, how we doing?
Hey, what?
Yeah, just thought I'd do something nice. End of the season, bring in some donuts. I know you guys love these, so.
TireRack.com, the first hour brought to you by those great folks, the official tire expert and retailer, The Dan Patrick Show. Go to TireRack.com/Dan. Try the easy-to-use tire decision guide, full lineup of Firestone tires, and TireRack.com is the way tire buying should be. All righty, Seton. But it is weird that Harbaugh's asking permission because it felt like going into that press conference, there was some kind of game plan of let's not make this about the suspensions. Let's make it about the kids. They won the title. And that's where Jim goes, can I? But, he said, we're innocent a couple times, and this is the way, basically that this is the way the season was meant to be. It was scripted this way. Yes, Eden.
It is odd how they keep fluctuating between we're innocent and, well, everybody was doing it too. It's kind of odd. It's like Michigan has morphed. Well, everybody was doing it, so that means we're innocent. into one thing or something. I don't really understand what it is.
Yeah. I wanted Harbaugh, if he's innocent, to stand up and prove that he was innocent or do the best he could to prove he was innocent. That was all I wanted. If you're innocent, great. If it's somebody went rogue on your staff, okay, then great. Point that out. But did you benefit from this? And that's why I've said this before. In 3 years from now, do they vacate the title? Do they vacate the title because they're going to forfeit those games? If you did cheat, what games did you cheat in? Can we give you victories there? I mean, with the NCAA, you never know. And that's why I wondered, what's the best story? Michigan winning keeps this alive. Michigan winning, now does Jim leave? More likely to leave. If Washington won, it was a great story for the Pac-12. They say goodbye to the Pac-12 in, not the most fitting way because it crumbles. But to win that Pac-12 title in this year, that would have been awesome. And Washington was a fun team to see. I hated to see Michael Penix not play at a high level. But you know what? If you watch the Texas game plan, they ran the football against Washington. And I'm thinking, if Texas can do that, wow, Michigan is going to have a field day. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah, Pauline.
Just with the NCAA, when it was 2004, 2005, when USC had their national title season, it took 6.5 years until they were stripped of their national title. Yeah. There was an appeal process. There was everything. It was 6.5 years after said infractions that they were stripped of that title.
Jim might be on to his second job after Michigan.
He'll be back at Michigan.
I'm going to come in and I'm going to clean up that mess.
My mess.
Wait, you created the mess. All right, but I'm coming in. Bringing in my new assistant coach, Connor Stallions. Was he at the game last night? Does he get a championship ring? Just wondered. All right, poll question, Seton.
Well, we could start with the game last night. Might as well, right?
Okay.
Last night's game was more of a blank than the score suggests. Last night's game was more of a blank than the score suggests. Right. Was last night more of a blowout, or was the game closer than it appeared? Because I can't really figure out which it was. It was kind of both simultaneously.
Yeah, you were struggling during the game to kind of define it. You're like, is this a blowout? Or is this, the first quarter felt like a blowout.
It feels like Washington is 2 plays away from being right back in the game while also being completely manhandled the entire time.
Yes.
It was like, I couldn't figure out, it feels like Michigan is absolutely destroying them, but if this isn't a phantom holding call, they're right back in this game.
I just thought 17-10, Washington getting the ball starting second half, and then there were just a couple of plays. But you're right, it teetered on being like 45-13, or it teetered on maybe it was going to be, 33-30, something like that. By the way, Dylan, who's part of our gambling podcast, did give the 5.5 and won that bet. He also took the under, and he won that bet as well, if you follow the Dan Patrick Takes a Gamble. Paulie, how would you fill in the blank?
I would say the word I was thinking, that game felt like more of a game than it was. Okay. Because if you bailed out or you said wow, Michigan's got this. Like you said, at the start of the fourth quarter, they had a couple drives that holding call when Adunze had that catch, maybe 11 minutes left.
Yeah.
It was, and Herbstreit's pretty objective, and he goes, man, that's a quick holding call.
You can't call that.
It was quick.
Because Herbie even was pointing out the number of times Michigan was holding. Like he's saying they're holding. And then I just thought that was more of I'm going to throw you to the ground. Maybe it's a quick hook. But, if you play that out, he gets that catch, maybe they tie up the game there. Michigan was the better team. Absolutely. I thought Washington was sort of just hanging on the periphery. And, but, the final score won't indicate that. Yes, Todd?
I thought it was more of a whooping with someone whose name is not Blake Corum runs for a 46 and 41-yard touchdown early like that. Maybe it's an optical illusion because those were huge plays, but it just looked like an embarrassment.
Yeah, but Edwards filled in for him last year and was really good. And I mean, that hole that he ran through, I'm like, oh, my God. It was one of those where you go, you gotta. I mean, come on. If not, you're going to give. I said at the time I'm watching, they're going to rush for 250 yards. Now, I underestimated. They went for 303. Marvin, what do you think the game was?
I think it was closer. This wasn't Notre Dame, Alabama or anything. This was one of those.
Too soon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But this was one of those, all right. Oh, they almost had that one.
Seton, what about you?
If I had to pick one, I would say it was a much closer game than the score says. Washington was right in that. Penix gets a couple more completions, couple less. I think that nerves on Washington clearly played a big role in the game because their offensive line was getting worked and they kept jumping, which is obviously a sign of nerves. I thought that was a big part of it, but I think the game was a lot closer. I think Washington was right in it right up until late into the fourth.